Yeah, we're gonna go over theories, stuff like that, stuff we find interesting that hopefully a lot of other people do, stuff we hear about on other podcasts, other shows, random stuff you wouldn't normally think would be on a podcast is gonna be on this one.
Don't fall into a genre.
Yes, we're not in a genre. We're gonna be 100 different genres, and most of it relaying around, theories, ideas, stuff that we don't normally hear about.
Or you don't hear about. That's the whole point behind this.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to give you ideas to talk about, ideas for us to talk about. Hopefully we all learn something in the process, right?
One of the things that we did want to talk about, though, is our recent purchase, our saltwater tank.
Yes, this is huge.
That was actually pretty big. We added a saltwater tank here at the house. We got 2 clownfish, which we named Nemo and Marlin.
Nemo and Marlin.
Nemo's dead.
We had a very sad passing.
Yes, Nemo passed away today.
Broke the news during my work day.
Yep.
Ruined my work day for me.
We got 3 green chromies.
Blue-green chromis, yes.
Chromis. Those ones are Larry, Moe, and Curly.
Is blue-green.
Okay. Well, those ones are Larry, Moe, and Curly. Fun fact about us, I have been doing fish tanks for about 2 years. And Josh and my brother Jonathan, who you guys will know later on in the podcast, have just started. And this is my first saltwater one. I've been doing freshwater for a long time.
My dad actually has a freshwater one. But
Yes.
I was very young, so I don't really remember.
Well, now we get to enjoy the fun of it. We got a shrimp.
It's like a whole new world.
It's
like opening up a world into just having a window.
Being from Michigan, we don't...
Not a door, a window.
It's a window.
It's
a window into what it's like down south because we live in Michigan.
A window like it's down in the ocean.
Yeah,
window in the ocean, into the reef.
Living in Michigan, we don't get very many tropical stuff, and so this is our little gateway into the ocean.
To that reef life.
Yeah, we get to see that. We have an anemone
escape.
that we thought died. That anemone almost died.
He could be dead right now.
He probably is dead.
He's not doing too great. We'll get better at it though.
Yeah, we're learning.
I just ordered some
water
testing kits, so we're gonna test the water. We gotta look into that. We gotta look a way that we can get that tank in here, whether it be in this corner or what. We gotta get a tank in here. I'm gonna do my 10-gallon tank at least. In here?
We'll get that.
What, freshwater?
Yeah. Well, the thing I'm gonna do about freshwater is I'll be able to get more fish for significantly cheaper, easier to manage, and it'll still look good. I've been trying to get one that I can put that freaking bamboo plant in, because I've been wanting the bamboo plant to be in constant water, so I don't have to water it.
Well, I mean, I was telling you, like, the red mangroves, they actually grow in the ocean. And they could grow in a saltwater tank. So that could be a way of getting some vegetation into that tank.
I wonder how you can get them, though.
Yeah.
When we were at the stores, I didn't see any of those. The only things I saw were anemones, coral, stuff like that. I didn't see anything like that.
You're talking about corals. I know you've been watching a show.
Yes,
I
have.
Pretty interesting on corals.
Actually, thanks to me and your subscription to Discovery Plus, shout out to them. They have a show on there called Oceans, and I was thinking because of how much we've been focused on the saltwater tank, why not watch something about saltwater? And so one of the things they were talking about in there was the Indian Ocean, and how they went into this reef that was growing vertically on a split rock. So this giant rock, I mean, probably 30, 40 feet tall.
So we got like a valley we're talking about.
It literally turned into a valley. It literally cracked right down the center, like a rock was like this, and then it split on its axis and created this...
Probably because of like some sort of like tectonic plates moving or something.
Natural disaster or something. It's over in the Indian Ocean, they get those tsunamis and stuff over there.
Yeah.
So they were going down around it, and they realized because most of those coral don't grow vertically. And the thing that was crazy to them is because they were marine biologists is that this coral had to adapt, because instead of just dying, it had to adapt to grow vertically because it's literally just straight lines, like a giant valley. And they were growing like sideways. And the problem that they were saying is if you look at the coral, there's literally 3 types of coral next to each other that go after each other. But for some reason, it's either they're fighting for the life or there's no food scarcity or whatever they were saying, because they're not going after each other. So I don't know.
So they're living in harmony when they're not supposed to?
Yeah, they're like 3 like really aggressive types of coral that go in. One of the biggest forms of their food is eating other anemones and coral. Mm-hmm. And for some reason they're not attacking.
They got to get that calcium. That's probably a good way to get that, because that's their bone structure.
What the marine biologist, I didn't get to finish the episode, we're trying to figure out though is why are they allowed to grow next to each other? In a normal scenario, if you were to put them in the ocean, they wouldn't. They would literally just be on the ground.
I mean, that's something we're learning every day though with the tank. Like you can see how in nature things adapt so well to different like surroundings and everything and different situations they're put in. But when we have a tank in captivity, it's so much harder for them to adapt because these changes that you're doing, they're happening so dramatically.
Yeah.
Unlike an ocean where you have so much space to work with, it's just these changes happening so quickly. It's hard for them to adapt. That's at least what I think. But it's just.
I was wondering that about our tank is because like these fish that we got, do they only know aquarium life?
I would say yes. I read a statistic earlier today that they estimate about 85% of fish that you're buying from aquarium stores and putting in your aquariums are captive. They've never seen.
We don't know
they've never seen the wild.
We don't know anything. We're trying to look all. I was so funny. A couple of days ago, we were like, "Oh my God, this anemone's dead," and then we come to find out he actually like shrinks up, goes back out, shrinks up.
Yeah, expelling the stale water.
And we're like, "What the hell?" And I'm sitting there pulling it off the rock, like trying to get it to start living again.
And then they say, "Don't do that either. You're gonna rip the foot.
We don't
end up dying." And that's just something that hopefully with this podcast and through doing these experiences, we just learn more. Because, I mean, life is a learning experience, right?
That's why I fell in love with podcasts, and that's why I wanted to start this one, is because I listen to podcasts every day. I feel like I have learned, and I feel like a lot of people have, and are starting to realize how much information they're learning through social media, whether it be podcasts, TikTok, YouTube. I mean, this is the first time in history where college has been jammed down our throats so much, in which we are both in college, but it's been jammed down our throats so much that because that was the only form for you to be smart, you had to go and get an education. Now you could be smart in your field, in your trade, and learn other things.
Yeah, but it's schooling versus knowledge.
Yeah, and so the thing is how much was knowledge important? Well, of course it was important, but how much did it play a role in how successful you would be 30, 40 years ago before the internet? Because now, if you were to ask me a question, I can, in 5 seconds, practically look it up. As fast as I can type is how fast I can find out an answer to one of your questions. Now, whether that be a big math problem, you can literally search it up and somebody else on the internet has answered that question.
The problem is figuring it out. Mm-hmm. You can look up
good information.
You can look up how to repair an engine all day, but if you don't understand fully what you're doing, it can be harder than just looking it up.
Well, but to the basis of that, though, like you can start with, now repairing something as big as an engine, you're going to have to put a little more time in than the 5 seconds. But the thing that you can do is you can do more looking and look up basic videos on how to start. And then you go into the more intermediate and advanced videos. And then maybe over a course of time, you just taught yourself a whole learning experience that in school it would have taken you, maybe the same amount of time, but you're doing it for significantly cheaper.
Even if it takes you more time, it's the money saving. Mm-hmm. And just being able to do that in your free time instead of being stuck in a classroom trying to learn about this through a professor, which, I mean, if you have a desire to learn something and you put your own time into it, you can, I feel like, get much more out of that thing.
I was looking at this crazy statistic right here. So it says here, in the same period, private schools had cost $27,000 a year annually. Between 1999 and 2000, the tuition has gone up 136%.
Who's that from?
This is from educationdata.org. That's crazy, because I talked to my parents and they're talking to me. See, here's another statistic right here, U.S. News, which, again, I don't know how credible these sources are. One of them was a .org, which to me doesn't mean shit. But has gone up 171%. Like my parents, when they were talking about going to school, they said, yeah, it cost me 13 grand for a whole year, living included. And that just gets you your books and your basic classes of maybe 14, 15 credits, a full term semester.
Yeah.
I mean, or a full year, I guess, because then you got to count in living is another 13 grand to add on to it. And that's state college. I was talking to my girlfriend's brother and family, and they were saying they were paying 48 grand a year to go to Davenport University because it's a private college.
Yeah.
48 grand a year. I'm like, that's freaking crazy. That's how much Alabama would cost for me if I were to go out of state and go down there.
Yeah.
And that's still, to me, crazy expensive.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about what you're learning there, though. You gotta find something that you can actually use, you know?
Yeah, that's my mentality on school, is just get it done and quick and as cheap as possible. I mean, I was talking with my coworker today how she bought her first home. She's in her 50s. Lovely lady. She bought a home for $80,000. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. And she's like, I went to go buy my son a home about 3, 4, 5 years ago to try to look. And she's like, you can't even get a crack house for 80 grand. Like, these houses are in these areas are going so crazy that she's like, you if you want to get a home that even needs $30,000, $40,000 worth of you know, like capital to be put into it to be able to renovate it, it's going to take you you're still going to have to spend over 150 grand. Get something livable.
Yeah. I mean, going even farther back, I have a coworker who's in his 80s. He said he spent 12 grand on his house. I think my grandma spent 8.
The funny thing is, you look at these comedians that are talking about it, is like, I hate the old generation, because the old generation's like, oh, I traded 1 chicken and a cat and I got this 3 million square foot home on the water. And he's like, now I'm here in a 1,500 square foot apartment with 12 roommates just to afford rent. It's just hilarious. It's sad, because I think of like kids like us who are just now, you know, born 2000, 2001, right around there, or you're 2002. Yeah. So, I mean, right in that range, we're all graduating. We all graduated high school. We're getting into college now. And right after I'm 2 years away, right? What's my life going to be like in 2 years? I'm going to be starting a career. Luckily, I'll be different than other people because I'll get to actually have a position to go into. But a lot of people, I feel, you know, how are you supposed to start your life?
Yeah.
You're getting
paid.
Be
difficult. I mean, think of all the people that just like go into something not knowing what this career actually consists of. So what I was talking about basically was just like how, like, if houses cost like 8 to 12 grand in like the 50s and 60s and stuff, how much that's changed over the years. If you sort of notice that throughout your life, like, is this such a big shock when we're gonna be 60 or 70? Are we gonna like notice this, like how dramatic the change has been, and be like shocked, or is it so slow that we don't really realize it?
I guess the only way to know that would be like, I guess, talking to like your grandparents, right? Like, or asking my parents what, like, because the thing is I hear stories about my grandma all the time. She's saying how, you know, and you hear stories on the internet too of people saying that they'll go and they used to buy a hot dog for 25 cents, like Tiger Woods' speech when he got into the Hall of Fame. Like, one of the things is like, he used to get 75 cents from his mom. One was for a hot dog. One was to call her to pick her up whenever she dropped him off at tournaments. And the other one was just in case the 25 cents didn't work, or whatever, if the actual phone like ate the quarter. So like, the thing to me is we don't have payphones now, right? I mean, like, realistically, you go tell me where you can find a payphone, you have no idea.
Far and few between.
Yeah, and so because so many people have switched to cell phones.
Yeah. And
so the thing is like, I guess that could be considered a dramatic change. A payphone, you could make a call for 25 cents. Now you got to spend $600, $700, $800, or if you get an Apple, you got to pay, you know, an arm and a leg to make a call, right? And then on top of that, your service, which is what, $50 a month?
Yeah, or more.
Yeah. I was looking at the new flip Samsung phone, like the one that folds open.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I really want this phone. I've been an Apple guy my whole life. you know, which has not been that long when it comes to technology. I'm like, I really want to try maybe this. I wish I could get iOS onto that. So I was looking into it, and the phone was $1,800. I'm like, holy crap! There's no way I'm paying $1,800 for a phone I'm gonna replace in 2 years. Because you know, every phone in like 3 years is like, oh well, now it's taking a shit. It's not charging. Won't hold my charge anymore. So I don't know. I've heard very many different theories about what it will look like in a few years. I mean, with the way that AI is going, will we have any realistic, real physical objects that we hold? Or will everybody be in a room in like an apartment-styled situation where our whole world has been transferred into this AI kind of scenario?
Not AI, you're talking AR.
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 Yeah.
Augmented reality.
Yeah, because like the thing is with these NFTs, which don't even get me started. I can tell you crap about them. But people were buying homes in real virtual neighborhoods, and like you had to pay a certain amount to be in this one gated neighborhood. And I'm like, how is this gated? How is this even real?
Yeah, who's coming in?
How many people are paying this kind of money for a house that's not even real?
Yeah.
Millions of dollars are spent on homes.
It's like just thinking it's gonna become something. People are just hoping that this can become a larger thing, and they're profiting, because I mean that's what everything's about, right?
Yeah.
Just profiting money off something. And so, like looking back, like it's just like the change. You don't hear about it much, but it's got to be noticeable if you really start asking people about it. And so I guess that's just something we'll learn just living.
Do you think that people notice it as much because their pay over time is most likely increasing?
And that's what he said. He said the salaries are increasing, so you're not noticing that increase.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got to be seen, you know?
I don't know.
It's got to be noticed.
Like if you're making, let's say you make $10 an hour, right?
Yeah.
And bread goes up 10 cents, right? And then you make $11 an hour, but the bread is still 10 cents. Are you noticing the change of that 10 cents because now or did it kind of even itself out? I mean, I know that's a really crappy ratio.
But I mean, I guess you're just seeing like, oh, that's a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Or when it starts to get more expensive, like, you know, oh, I'm getting screwed now.
Yeah.
So it's just perspective, I guess.
And the other thing too is like people like to say cars. Like this brand new Ford Mustang in 1960 cost $8,000 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But you got to compare the technology that was put into that Mustang.
Yeah.
And compare it to now. I mean, the technology it has to cost more. It's got to cost more because you have to have the engineers to design it. You got to have the people make sure it works, and then you got to buy the actual physical like elements that they use to make it.
I know engineering is the biggest part on some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're looking at like 60% in the engineering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not the same as it used to be. It's everything's very delicate. Like when I work at a dealership, and you just see how much computers and like these chip shortages. You just see how much.
You see how that much raped the world.
How much more difficult it is to fix these cars, and it's more difficult to fix them, but it's more difficult to build them too. Also, it's just more engineering's going into it, more development, software engineers.
Well, it's no longer 4 wheels and a steering wheel.
Yeah, it's not
much more than
three mechanics building a car. It's 85 people on a single team to program it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you got your team of engineers, which is hundreds, and so it's just exponentially costing more.
And again, I don't know how you could even relate that. I mean, because the thing is like if you look at people in the 1920s, right, and their world costed a penny and 10 cents was like a lot for something, right? I mean, you got to also count in how much inflation happened, how much the U.S. dollar is still worth compared to that. I mean, because what happened is, and I love to see when people are like, oh, let's just print more money,
Yeah.
Well, Germany showed us that.
No, you want to who showed us that? That country in Africa, they printed $100 trillion bills.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
And you can see how inflation can get out of hand.
You should look that up.
And quickly.
Yeah. The thing is like during World War II, though, they were running out of money. I think it was World War II. I don't know. But anyways, Germany printed a bunch of money, and it caused so much inflation that their dollar or their whatever they use as their currency dropped so significantly that it literally people were burning it to heat their homes.
Oh yeah.
I mean, because there was just so much, and printing is the
problem. It's worth less than firewood.
Yeah, and that's why people were using it to heat their homes. It's crazy.
And it was Zimbabwe, yeah, and it was just like taking off. Like the way it works is you have $100 bill, and then all this stuff price increases, so you print more money to offset it. Now you're making a $2,000 bill, and it's getting cheaper, and it just keeps stacking. You know, go to $100 million bill, then you're up to $1 trillion bill, $100 trillion bill. Your money's worth nothing.
Yeah,
can't even buy a dozen eggs with $100 trillion.
I know.
I mean, imagine.
No, I couldn't. That's the thing. I couldn't imagine. I mean, you hear about how much inflation is going up. I saw something saying like, "Oh, inflation's up 8%. So if you didn't get an 8% raise, you're working for a reduction," which in theory is true. But realistically, how often are you going to be able to go to your boss and say, "Hey, inflation's up 8%. You owe me 8% raise"?
Yeah, and I mean, it's not all about raises too. There's different ways of fighting inflation. It's not just your payroll. I mean, people look at your payroll, but I would say those people are wrong because the main way of fighting inflation is investing. I mean, the S&P 500 or the Nasdaq, it beats inflation. And so that's your goal. It's trying to beat inflation.
Yeah, working in a financial field. You know, I work for Edward Jones, and one of the things that I absolutely love hearing about is my dad reads the Wall Street Journal every morning, right? Yeah. He starts his day, he reads the Wall Street Journal, and I love to go in there and say, is anything new happening in the world? I ask him every day, and he gives me the rundown, kind of like a short gist of what's happening, and so one of the things that he likes to tell me is that, you know, there's two different types of people when stuff like this when shit hits the fan, right? There's the people that are like, oh my God, the market's down, pull all my money out, I'm losing all this money. The thing is the only people that are losing money are the people who pull it out.
Exactly.
Because the money is still there, it's just floating.
It always corrects itself and more. I mean, if you look at these graphs, you see a Great Depression, and then you go above that.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, let's say
it's a cycle, right?
I don't know what the market is down right now, but the thing is it's crazy to look at all the things that, like, let's say in 2008, I think the market at its lowest point was down like 23%. And then in the next 2 years, it was up 27%, 28%. So that's 4% right there. Now, and this is what I don't know, because again, I don't know everything, is that number based off of the previous year? So, like, if it was down 23% and it goes up positive 27%, is there a baseline that it stays at? Like, this is the baseline. Now we're up 27% and we're down. Or is it from the previous year?
I don't know.
I don't know that either. Because then the thing is like, okay, so now you're really only at a 4% gain for the past 2 years, right?
Yeah, for the past 2 years you are.
Because you went down 23, you went up 27, now you're only at a 4% gain.
And yes, so I do think they tell you that. I think they say in the past year it's down 23%. But if you do look at your full graph for those past 3 years, the year plus the extra 2 years, you'll be up 4% for the past 3 years.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I don't know. It's so much stuff. And this is part of growing up, right? We learn all this stuff that we didn't know previously. You couldn't ask me 5 years ago to talk to you about any stocks or anything like that.
No.
And it's all gained through life experience. I mean, and so this is a great way to get into what I wanted to talk to you about, too. So I was listening to a Two Bears podcast. It's actually relatively old. So shout out to Two Bears, One Cave, one of my favorite podcasts, with Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura, two comedians. They're best friends. And Tom Segura had Leanne, which is Bert's wife, on which they're friends too, just through the mutual friendship. And one of the things that she was saying so interesting is that she knows this guy who met Bert. Bert's this goofy, always takes his shirt off, really funny guy. And she was saying that he came up to her and said, Bert is like a child, in the sense that he will never outgrow his child-like behavior, but he has the curiosity of a child, where a child's always touching and always trying to learn things. But usually the things that he's trying to learn aren't statistics, mathematics, but they're all very odd things you want to learn. And I feel like I can relate a lot to that because there's so many things that I find are so odd. Like this fish tank, right?
Yeah.
55, maybe even more of the population would give a rat's ass about this fish tank.
Yeah.
But me, you, and Jonathan, we've been working so hard trying to figure it out. We find it so interesting. You know, all these other theories we hear about. And it really, you know, stuck to me like, oh, maybe I have the curiosity of a child. Like maybe one of the things that is so interesting about me, because I love ranting about these random theories I hear about on podcasts or look them up, and my girlfriend looks at me like, you're crazy. Like, I don't want to hear this. She doesn't care. And that's one of the reasons why we created this podcast, is because me and you love talking about it, and we know there's got to be people out there who can relate to us and want to listen. Now, whether that's one person or 100 people, it doesn't matter.
I mean, there's a niche for everything.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. That's one of the main things is that it just stuck with me how much of a curiosity we both have on random stuff, the randomest stuff.
I mean, that's like that's how we want to kind of make this podcast. It's just a little bit about everything, so we can hit all those niche spots.
Mm-hmm. And that's why we said we're not going to stick to one genre.
The more you listen to, the more we can explore.
Yeah.
Into these different things.
It will be really fun though when we can bring people on. I think that will be really good for us.
I think we have to try to make that happen.
We got a couple people lined up that we think would be really interesting. I mean, nobody famous, but we don't need anybody famous. We can talk. I learned so much from my parents and from, you know, my grandparents and all these other people in my life who, you know, give me their life experience that I would never have learned without meeting them, you know? And so that's one of the things that I find interesting is asking people. I mean, I'm very history driven. I think that history is one of the best ways to look into the future. You look at what people were like in the past, and whether or not we're in the, you know, we're in this field of where we constantly do these loops, whatever your theory is on, you know, we kind of relate back to what history was before. I mean, and that actually goes to the theory that I was listening to on Joe Rogan's podcast. Shout out to him. Absolute favorite podcast there. Is that, you know, he brings on all these really interesting, you know, doctors and scientists and all these people. And one of the theories they were talking about is the Younger Dryas. And like Joe Rogan says, he doesn't really know if he believes in it, right? Mm-hmm. But the thing is it could make sense. And so us being, you know, religious, we look at a religious standpoint, scientists look at more of a scientist standpoint, and I feel like it's a lot more correlated than what we like to think. Like the Younger Dryas theory is where, I hope I'm getting this right, is where a meteor or some sort of rock from space came and it hit the ocean and it caused this huge flood, which you hear about in the Bible as Noah's Ark. You hear about it in ancient Egypt when in the hieroglyphs they talk about the Great Flood. And what those do is those kind of reset civilization. And they believe, which again, I hope I'm getting this right, is between every 300,000 to 500,000 years, depending on how much you actually believe that the Earth went back that far. The thing is that we're kind of right in that span. Mm-hmm. From the last one to the one before that, we're right in that window. And so some people theorize that we might be, you know, having a reset to the universe because the Earth is constantly in an asteroid field all the time. There's asteroids all around. We have no idea if something's coming in at, you know, gonna switch course, curve, hit another rock and shatter and go into a million pieces and one of those pieces be big enough. We don't know.
Yeah, it could happen so fast.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is this is funny. I was hearing somebody talk about this. They were saying how there is a protocol with NASA. If they see something, they tell the Pentagon that something's coming down. You want to know what they say?
What's that?
Their philosophy on it is that what's the protocol? Don't tell anyone.
Yeah, no, we'll never know.
If there was an asteroid coming to Earth, we'd have no idea.
We'll see it when it hits.
Yeah. Right when it's getting close enough, we're like, what the hell is that? And then,
It's because they don't want to cause that mass panic. It would mess up the plans that they have.
And that's one of the things that interests me is like why. I get their side of it. I see why they wouldn't want to cause mass panic, because what happens if they can do something to change that outcome. But for the most part, I mean, I feel like I would want to tell people just so that people can reconcile with whatever they have or whatever. I don't know.
I guess it'll be over so fast you can't really even think about it, so it won't affect you.
So back on the NFT stuff.
Yeah.
So I looked it up. So Snoop Dogg spent $450,000 on a virtual plot of land.
Yeah.
Just a plot. He didn't even put a house on it yet. He just bought the plot. Nope.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, what's gonna happen like with technology next? You know.
I know. What happens if we can download ourselves? So I actually heard a theory on this. What happens if we can download ourselves into a computer?
I mean, you're thinking Matrix now.
Mm-hmm. So your physical body might disappear.
Yeah.
But what if you can live forever immortally through the internet? Would your soul be there? No. So is it really you? No one knows. As Christians, we believe that we go to heaven, right? But, I mean, everybody's got a different theory. One of the most interesting theories I heard, which didn't entirely make sense, but it like kind of jogs my mind, is, I don't know what religion this is either, how you keep reliving your life until you get every decision right, which I feel like for me would be, I'm probably still in the cycle, just spinning in circles.
Yeah.
I mean, and it would be crazy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that there's so many different things that would relate to that, in the sense that, people get deja vu. Like maybe people have experienced this before and made the wrong decision. I don't know.
Yeah, and it gets back to them and they can think about it again.
Well, think about it. That means if you make one wrong decision, you got to do the whole thing over again.
Yep, from the beginning. And then what if you make a new wrong decision?
Mm-hmm. Because of that one.
Now that's a whole restart.
And so that's the thing. How would you ever make all the right decisions? Never. You would just be stuck in this endless loop. Because think about it. The different decisions is me playing with this pen, right? Do I want to put it in my left hand or my right hand? There's a decision. Do I want to take the cap off? No. Do I want to put the cap back on? Is that a right or wrong decision? Now, you can argue, well, is maybe right or wrong decisions like, moral stuff? Like, morally, should I have flipped that person off? Morally, should I have cut that person off in my car? Well, I mean, now, are those right or wrong decisions? And
who's judging?
And then you get it back into the topic of who's the one telling you it's right or wrong? If it's right for you, then
I guess it's their greater God. They're being judged by a God.
Well, that theory. How would you even have a God if it's just an endless loop? Right? Like, how could you believe that something could keep putting you in this endless loop? It would have to be yourself. It would be a very selfish point of view. Like, we all have to keep reliving our lives till we get every decision right because you made the wrong decision. So you're stuck in that loop.
Well, you're not stuck in it with other people. It's just you living it over. So
without knowing.
It could be. I mean, I don't think it's very selfish. I think their God is making them relive their life to get something right, and it's up to them to change it. I don't think you're really affecting anybody else.
Well, technically, we would be doing it with other people, because that means me and you in another time loop would be having this exact conversation in another time loop, making different decisions.
Yeah, but I think if you like you said, if you get all your decisions right, then you're free. So this could not even be happening in that time when, if you got all your decisions right, I would be by myself trying to correct my decisions.
But
and you would have completed yours.
But I'm saying, but with me being in this chair.
No. You've already completed all your.
So then I just disappear and you just never meet me in that lifetime.
In that lifetime.
But that means there had to have been a baseline for you to make wrong decisions.
Yeah.
So you think if that theory was right, or that religion was right, that you would make every single wrong decision you possibly could to start a baseline?
Well, I'm not going to say one religion's right or wrong. I mean,
no, this is just a hypothetical. If you were to think, so let's say that's right, hypothetically, does that mean that you made, at the very, very beginning, you made every single wrong decision you possibly could in that lifetime to give yourself a baseline, so now there's like a checklist?
Well, I think it's just based on you, right? There's no baseline. It's the baseline you make. You don't have to get every decision wrong. You don't have to get every decision right. But it's about getting them all right in the end.
Yeah.
The end goal.
Like I said, that's something that blows my mind, because you can go round and round in circles and think of all these different things to add on to that. Yeah. To think that and the thing is so one of the theories that blew my mind with Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's one of my favorite people to listen to. He has the show on Disney Plus, Cosmos. Great show. I wanted to talk to you about that too. One of the things he was saying though is, because space is infinite, and this is a theory, of course, this isn't real. Like, you don't know if it's real. Is because space is infinite, me and you are having this exact same conversation in the exact same time, endless amount of times in space. That's crazy.
Yeah, you just don't know, right? Mm-hmm. That's with science. You never know where something's right or wrong. You know, we're always discovering new stuff. Mm-hmm. So what we learn now could be wrong. Mm-hmm. Like our DNA being a double helix, we all think that's correct, but maybe
we don't know what's correct.
Maybe
maybe assume these people know what they're talking about.
Maybe when we get further testing equipment, we notice something smaller. Maybe there's a thin strand that runs through the other, and now it creates an X in the middle. Mm-hmm. And now it's a different thing.
The question is how many times in history have scientists been wrong and like corrected themselves?
Yeah, a lot. It happens.
Right? So like all the science that we believe we have an understanding on now could be completely wrong. Yeah. In 20 years, 10 years, 100 years, you don't know.
Yeah. And look at this like new science. Like I saw this new telescope that just came out. It's super interesting. Like they have this. It's stronger than Hubble, and it can see more. And the statistic was crazy. It was just that because this telescope is so far away from the Earth, it can see 250 million years back. So they're kind of seeing like before any of us were here, 250 million years.
Yeah.
We're only 2,000 years old since this calendar started, and then some time behind that. I wouldn't say we're 1 million years old, so it's definitely 249 million years before us.
It's crazy.
They're just seeing so many different things, all these different galaxies on top of ours. There's thousands of planets and galaxies, or hundreds of planets and galaxies, and yeah, that's a picture.
I mean, this is a picture they took, right? And this is the telescope.
It's crazy to think how that even works. You can't even.
Well, look at this. I just saw something on the internet too. It was like the most detailed picture of space. I wonder if I can look it up. Let's see if I can find it. It's something along these lines of how crazy the pictures are now. So what was I saying?
You're saying the most detailed picture of space.
Detailed picture.
And these cameras are just getting more and more advanced. Like if you look at the Hubble versus new James Webb Telescope, you're seeing this quality of picture you've never seen. I mean, this I believe is the new one from the James Webb one, and we're just getting more technology to see more stuff. It says here it's
the Southern Ring Nebula. This right here is the most detailed picture of space we have. Yeah. And obviously it's going to be a little choppy for people watching. It's not going to be perfect. If you wanted to look it up though, you could go to Travel Land Leisure, or just look up NASA released the most detailed pictures of space, and it will pull it up for you. It is phenomenal. I mean, to think that 100 years ago we would have never have thought that this was even remotely possible.
Yeah.
And the other crazy theory I heard is, and this is from Neil deGrasse Tyson also, because I absolutely love listening to him, is the fact that in order to see the past, right, light is constantly reflected and sent away from Earth, right? And so over time, in order to see the past, you would have to be able to fly faster than the speed of light, get to that point where that light was reflected off of Earth that so long ago, and if you could take a telescope and look back, you would be able to see what Earth looked like at that time, because at that point is when the light was reflecting. And so, I mean, we've never been able to figure out how to get faster than the speed of light. We just now are getting 10 Mach. I mean, that's in the sense of how fast the speed of light is. I mean, we're not even close there yet. And the question is can any living being even get that far, you know, and that fast?
Yeah.
I mean, what is the statistics on how long it would take for what do you call it? How fast can we go before we just rupture? Just disintegrate.
I think they haven't really. I guess it'd be like we gotta figure out terminal velocity, but then I guess that's falling, so we can travel faster, like flying with a propulsion system than we can falling.
Mm-hmm.
So we just I guess it's something we're gonna discover later on, just like we discovered how deep you can go in the ocean. You know, put someone down there in a suit, pull him up. He looks dead.
Yep.
So I think it didn't. I don't think it worked this time. Maybe we want to stay, not go to that depth next time.
Yeah, I think they just hit the bottom of the Marianas Trench, the deepest part in the ocean. I think I'm almost positive that was something they said. Let's see. Did we hit the deepest part? This is something that seems crazy to me. Is how do we know more about space than we do about our own ocean?
Yeah.
That scares the hell out of me.
It's just it's so much harder to get to, I believe, because the pressure in space, it's kind of all the same. You can just travel through it. Mm-hmm. You're getting pressure under the ocean that's just too difficult for us to reach.
Yeah. 35,000 feet is the deepest part of the ocean. It says here, it's been a record-breaking expedition for the more ways than one Vescovos trip to the Challenger Deep at the southern end of the Pacific Marine back in May. So this is from CNN, which they're super reliable. They hit 35,000 feet, almost 36,000 feet below sea level.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, that's how high planes fly.
Yeah. On the opposite end.
Another thing that's crazy about that I heard, so we have a very big perception of the way that the Earth is, right? If you were to take the Earth's ball and put it into a ball, right, and you were to shrink it down to the size of your hand, it would be smoother than a cue ball.
Wow.
Any cue ball in the world.
And it's so rough.
That's the
thing. We got 35,000 feet deep, and then we got
35,000 above, right?
Yeah, we got the.
But this is what's crazy. So you have Mount Everest being. Oh, I'm over here. You have 35,000 feet from Mount Everest, right? How long? So divide that by 5,000, because roughly 5,600, right, is how many feet are in a mile? Okay.
5,260, I think.
So that's only 5,000 feet up. Our Earth is 24,000 miles, right? So that's 5 miles up and 5 miles down. So that's 10 miles total. But the Earth is 24,901 miles around. So if you were to subtract, let's say 10, right?
Well, 25,000 wouldn't be 5. It'd be 7.
Well, it'd be 35,000. Yeah. Okay, so let's do 14 then. Okay. You subtract 14 from 24,900.
It's nothing.
It's nothing. Yeah. And so he was saying that if you were to take the Earth and shrink it to the size of a cue ball, it would be smoother than any cue ball in the world. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Because you think about it, I mean, just walking down the street, there's bumps and ridges because we're such a small spectrum compared to the vastness of the world.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Since we were on planes earlier, I just wanted to talk about that new Top Gun movie.
That was great. One of the best movies of all time.
Together. I mean, I wouldn't say it's the best of all time, but I think they improved on the previous one. Good. It was just the new cinematography and everything they could pull off with these new cameras, and I feel like we've learned how to film better to have our minds more interested in something. You know, it's just like filming stuff they wouldn't think to film, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when they show that first scene on the deck of the carrier, they're showing planes taking off in the first Top Gun.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're showing us that guy that sits on the deck and the top sticks up so he can watch the planes take off and make sure they don't have problems and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like they wouldn't think to put that in before, but people are interested.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're showing us these things that we don't get to see.
Well, also one of the things that was pretty cool is they talked about what's that company that has the skunk?
Skunk Works?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Lockheed Martin.
Yeah, Lockheed Martin.
Yeah.
I mean, shout out to them. They made the SR-7 or they made the SR-71. Now coming out with the SR-72.
Yeah, that's a theory. Well, they're saying that, and they said that was close to what they made in the movie, but obviously that was different.
Well, the movie was just trying to be fun.
It was sort of a design, and something that's interesting about them making that plane for the movie. China actually saw that movie and thought that was a real plane, and they had their whole site, like intel people trying to find this plane.
Yeah.
Find it where it's at, learn stuff about it, and they're on their satellites trying to watch this plane, and they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars trying to track down this plane, and it's a movie prop.
Yeah, it's not even real. That's crazy.
That's how good these movies are.
Mm-hmm.
They're making movies so good that they're tricking foreign governments into thinking we have these advanced planes when it's just a movie.
Well, what's crazy for me to think about is, like, if you look at, even in the old Top Gun, the original Top Gun, those planes could fly and land right off of this aircraft carrier that's out in the middle of the ocean, right? Yeah. When China first came out with their first aircraft carrier, it had a ramp.
I think they still do.
I think
it's slight, but I think it's still there.
I don't think it could ever leave the bay. It wasn't operational in the sense that it could leave the bay. It was docked and ported, and they had all these flags over all of it, showing at how amazing it was, and they couldn't even bring it out of the bay. They couldn't bring it out because it didn't move.
Yeah.
And it's so funny to look at. I got a picture of it right here.
I mean, it's just anybody trying to create this new technology. We don't know how to work it yet, and we can have like big problems like nuclear energy meltdowns and stuff. Not knowing exactly how to control it. We're getting better now. I don't know when the last nuclear meltdown was, but in the 80s it seemed pretty common. So we're kind of...
So apparently it looks like it did end up making its way out there. It's a nuclear one now. But this is the way it looked. Right here. It was sitting in the bay for the longest time. Had a giant ramp in the front. And they couldn't even figure out how to land back on it.
Yeah.
And this is what they had. This was it right here. That's 6 tugboats pushing this thing out to try to get it into the water.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And yeah, I mean, it's just movies are getting so good now. It's
have you seen the Sky Cruise?
No.
I gotta show you this. So one of the things that people are trying to talk about on the internet is they're creating the Sky Cruise. So you've been on a cruise before, right?
Oh wait, I think I have seen this. Yes, a large plane.
It's a plane that literally has like 30 engines on it that's nuclear powered.
Yeah, it's gonna stay up there for weeks, months.
I think it was like 7 weeks or something like that.
You're gonna stay up on a cruise.
Look at this fucking thing.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, I mean, look at that's a cruise ship in the air.
And it says that planes literally, watch, there should be a picture of it. So that's it next to Boeing's.
Yeah, like a 747.
Yeah, look at that. That's an Airbus. That's a double-decker Airbus.
Yeah.
Right. And so look at this. Planes will dock, unload the people,
to put the people in there,
and then they'll just fly away.
Wow.
Yeah. What? This doesn't even make sense. And would you trust that? Your own personal opinion. Like, I would never do the first time around.
They say planes are the safest way of traveling, so...
Good point. But you're telling me that's safer than a cruise ship?
Look at all the problems we have with cruise ships in the past few years.
Yeah, well, that's all COVID, though.
They haven't been very safe. No, tipping over.
I didn't hear any of them tipping over.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, there's problems with them. But yeah, I mean, it's just like movies are getting so good, and TV shows, we have a ton we like. I know you were talking about some into the cosmos and other ones that are informational, but like, I mean, we got Stranger Things.
Was great.
That's a really good show.
I haven't finished it, so don't you freaking spoil it.
Yeah, no, you gotta finish it. The last episode was a lot happened in the last one, but I think I used to be a big movie guy, and I think I'm transferring to TV shows. Just
they're getting so good.
The amount you can find for free, I feel like, versus movies, there's not as many, and like the TV shows you can just keep watching longer and longer. So I think movies are kind of, I still love them, but TV shows are kind of taking over with these apps that they have now, and like Netflix and Hulu and all them. And there's just so many to choose from.
Well, back to what you were saying before about, and I hate to keep looping back, but when we were talking before about noticing the biggest difference in price, right? Like, did we notice difference? I mean, think about it now. We pay $6-7 a month. We get unlimited amount of shows. On all these different streaming services. But before, you had to go to Family Video, Blockbuster, all these other places just to buy or rent a movie. Right? And so how much did that cost? You know, you wanted to watch a movie, you got like, you know, you had to go rent one VCR or whatever it was given to you on a DVD. I don't even know if they had DVDs when I'm talking about. And then you had to go give it back, like a library.
It was like, just renting. Put your name on it
for a week.
Yeah,
and then paid. I mean,
one night.
I mean, it's definitely weird to think about that we are growing up in the generation that doesn't know what it's like before technology.
It's just so easy for us.
It's crazy. It's crazy to think about that we can sit there and be able to grow up not knowing what our parents had to go through. Because, I mean, when they were bored, what did they do? They went and rode bikes, went
flicked
to the
little
woods.
Thing behind the door.
I mean, they were just bored, right? And I think now, don't get me wrong, I think there's a lot of problems that came with the internet, right? People had to see, and one of my favorite country artists is Sam Hunt, and one of the songs he has is Breaking Up in the 90s. Right? Great song. And it talks about how he wishes that it was probably so much easier breaking up in the 90s because there wasn't a way that you could see what she was doing, or, well, if you're into women, you could see what she was doing or what he was doing. And you know, you could actually, like, just wonder, oh, maybe I missed her phone call and she couldn't think about it or she didn't know what to say, so she didn't leave a message, is one of his lines. And I think about, like, you know, I have a great relationship now, but if I didn't, and I had an ex, I would constantly be wondering what she's doing. And if I could constantly see what they were doing, I think it would drive me nuts.
And just like all the like being slanderous too, like people putting stuff out there and trying to ruin your life with the internet. I mean, we see a lot of this now, just people's lives getting destroyed because of one video that was posted about them that's taken out of context, or just someone purposely trying to ruin their life. So I think times are really changing.
And and it's sad because, you know, I wish in some ways we knew what it was like before, but it's not like I would change it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm happy, I'm confident enough with my life. I wouldn't change it, you know. And that's one of the things and especially with COVID, me and my girlfriend were talking about this, how we couldn't imagine meeting other people.
Like, how did you do it?
Like, and so, like, now that we're not in school, we're doing online school for the most part. I mean, like, it's got to be hard. I can only feel for you because, like, to try to meet people seems so difficult now. Because in high school, you know, you're constantly around people. We went to an all-boys school, but, you know, when you're constantly around people all day, you meet people through friends and all that. But it's got to be so different. Like, I couldn't imagine trying to find somebody else.
I mean, times are definitely changing, and that's what we're seeing. So
I don't know. It's crazy to me. And how, you know, and there's definitely people out there that are meeting. And don't get me wrong. I mean, people are obviously meeting people. It's finally starting to pick back up now.
We're starting to see that, but I mean, it's coming back a little bit too. We're saying so.
Now I feel like the biggest debate is going to be what side of the politics were you on during COVID, right? Were you one of those people who agreed?
Well, it's going to cause problems at Thanksgiving and Christmas. So.
Well, that's the thing. Oh, I can't be around your family or this or that, and I think it's gonna cause a lot of problems that people didn't have to deal with before. So, and there's a lot of great things. We've been talking for almost 40 minutes now, since we had to take a pause. But Did you want to wrap this up or you want to keep going?
Yeah, I think we ended off a good point.
All right. Well, thank you very much for listening. I'm not going to do that every time, but since it's our first podcast, I do want to say thank you. I hope you enjoyed, and if there's any other topics, please let us know.
Yeah, we don't know when we'll be back next, but
we're going to hopefully do soon.
Hopefully once a week, maybe.
Yep.
So.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, good stuff.